Jace Marin had never met anyone quite like Larina Kothel. The communications bay of the Astral Harmony hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine, banks of monitors displaying data streams from across the galaxy. Jace sat hunched over his workstation, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces as he fine-tuned the quantum relay arrays. The work required precision. One miscalibrated frequency could cost them contact with command for weeks. "Slow thinker," came a melodious voice from behind him, tinged with barely contained amusement. Jace's shoulders tensed. He didn't need to turn around to know that Larina was watching him work, probably with that infuriating smirk that made his heart do unexpected things. The Velin had been assigned as his partner 3 weeks ago, and in that time, she'd made his life both infinitely more complicated and strangely more vibrant. "I'm not slow," he muttered, not looking up from his screens. "I'm thorough. He heard her move closer, the soft whisper of her uniform against the ship's recycled air. "Is that what you call it when you spend 20 minutes adjusting something that takes me 5? This time he did turn, immediately regretting it. Larina stood just close enough that he could see the subtle luminescence beneath her pale purple skin, the way her dark curls caught the blue light from the monitors. Her species was undeniably beautiful, humanoid enough to be familiar, alien enough to be fascinating. 2 arms, 2 legs, delicate features that belonged in classical art, but with those distinctive violet eyes that seemed to hold secrets. Maybe if you spent 20 minutes on something, it would actually work properly, Jace shot back, trying to ignore the way she was studying him with that intense gaze. Larina laughed, a sound like silver bells in zero gravity. "Oh, Jace. Always so serious." She reached past him, her arm brushing his shoulder as she plucked his sonic calibrator from his workstation. "Perhaps you need better tools." "Hey." He lunged for the device, but she was already dancing backward, holding it just out of reach. "Larina, give that back. I need it for the array alignment." "Do you?" She turned the calibrator over in her hands, her expression mockingly thoughtful. "Because I'm quite sure I saw you use it incorrectly yesterday. The harmonic frequency was all wrong." Jace felt heat rise in his cheeks. She was right, of course. The woman had an uncanny ability to spot his mistakes, often before he made them. "I was experimenting." "Experimenting," she repeated, her accent making the word sound like music. "Is that what humans call it when they break things?" Before he could respond, Commander Thorne's voice crackled through the comm system. "Marin, Kothel, report to engineering. We need the primary communications array recalibrated before we reach the Kepler station." Larina tossed the calibrator back to him with a casual flick of her wrist. "Come along, slow thinker. Time to show me this thorough approach of yours." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Jace found himself stealing glances at his partner. The way she moved was mesmerizing, fluid and graceful, like she was perpetually dancing to music only she could hear. Other crew members nodded respectfully as they passed. The Velithans had a reputation for brilliant scientific minds, and Larina was no exception. "You know," she said suddenly, not looking at him, "Commander Thorne warned me about working with humans." "Oh." Jace tried to keep his voice neutral. "What did he say?" "That you're emotionally complicated." She glanced at him sideways, and he caught the ghost of a smile. "That you take everything too seriously, especially teasing." "I don't take teasing seriously," he protested, then immediately realized how defensive he sounded. "No." Larina stopped walking and turned to face him fully. For a moment, her playful mask slipped, and he saw something deeper in those violet eyes, something that made his breath catch. "What do you take seriously, Jace Marin?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Jace opened his mouth to respond, but found himself lost in her gaze, in the subtle shift of luminescence beneath her skin. "The communications array," he said finally. "We should focus on that." Larina's smile returned, but it seemed somehow different now, softer, more mysterious. "Yes," she agreed. "Let's focus on that." As they continued toward engineering, Jace couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just failed some kind of test he didn't even know he was taking. The maintenance shaft felt smaller than usual. Jace floated in the cramped zero-gravity crawlspace, his headlamp cutting through the darkness as he worked to access the damaged relay junction. The emergency had struck without warning, a cascade failure in the primary communications array that threatened to leave them stranded in deep space. He and Larina had volunteered to make the repairs, squeezing into the narrow maintenance tunnel that ran between the ship's outer hull and inner bulkheads. "Hand me the fusion welder," he called softly, his voice echoing in the confined space. Larina's body pressed against his back as she reached for the tool, her breath warm against his neck. The intimacy of their position wasn't lost on him. In the cramped tunnel, every movement brought them into contact. Her pale purple skin seemed to glow brighter in the darkness, casting ethereal shadows on the metal walls. "The coupling is completely fused," she murmured, her usual teasing tone replaced by professional focus. "We'll need to rebuild the entire junction." Jace nodded, trying to ignore the way her curls tickled his cheek when she leaned closer to examine his work. They'd been trapped here for 2 hours already, and the close quarters were affecting him in ways he didn't want to acknowledge. "Jace," Larina said suddenly, her voice different, quieter, more uncertain than he'd ever heard it. "Yeah." He didn't turn around, afraid of what he might see in her eyes. "Do you ever wonder why I tease you so much?" The question caught him off guard. His hand stilled on the welding torch. I figured it was just how Velithans interact. Commander Thorne said your people don't really form attachments with other species." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the ship's life support systems. When Larina spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Commander Thorne doesn't know everything about my people." Jace's heart began to race. There was something in her tone, vulnerable, almost fragile, that made him want to turn around, to see her face. But the tunnel was too narrow, the work too delicate. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. "We're not as emotionally distant as others believe." Her hand brushed his arm, and he felt the subtle electric tingle that seemed to emanate from her skin. "We're just, selective. Very selective." The fusion welder slipped in his grip, and Jace cursed softly. His concentration was shattered, every nerve in his body hyper-aware of Larina's proximity. The way she smelled, like ozone and something floral he couldn't identify. The way her breathing had changed, becoming deeper, more rhythmic. "Larina," he began, but she cut him off. "I've been watching you," she said, her voice gaining strength. "For weeks, I've been watching how you work, how you think, how you care for others on this ship. Even when I steal your tools, even when I call you slow thinker, you never get truly angry. You just, endure. With patience. With kindness." Jace's hands trembled as he set down the welder. "I thought you were just having fun at my expense." "I was testing you," she whispered, and suddenly her arms were around him from behind, her body molding against his in the zero gravity. "My people, we don't play games without purpose, Jace. Everything I've done, every tease, every stolen moment of your attention, it's all been a test." "A test for what?" His voice cracked like a teenager's. Larina's lips brushed against his ear, and he shivered. "To see if you were worthy." "Worthy of what?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then, slowly, she turned him around in the cramped space until they were face to face, their bodies pressed together from chest to thigh. Her violet eyes were luminous in the darkness, and he could see something profound in their depths, something that made his breath catch. "Of me," she said simply. The words hung between them like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Jace stared into her eyes, seeing past the playful mask she'd worn for weeks to something deeper, more intense. Her pale purple skin was almost glowing now, pulsing with some internal rhythm that matched his own racing heartbeat. "Larina," he whispered, not sure what he was about to say. "Shoo." She placed a finger against his lips, and he felt that electric tingle again. "Let me say this while I have the courage. She took a shaky breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was filled with a gravity that transformed their intimate little space into something sacred. You think I'm only playing. But to my kind, this is how we test devotion. And you passed, Jace. Her hand cupped his face, thumb tracing his cheekbone. You're my forever. The words hit him like a physical blow. Forever. The way she said it, with such finality, such certainty, made something fundamental shift inside his chest. I don't understand, he breathed. Larina's smile was radiant and heartbreaking. I know. But you will. The ship's AI translator activated with a soft chime, its synthetic voice cutting through the charged atmosphere of the maintenance tunnel. Translation request detected. Velin phrase, Koth el Voronai, approximately translates to, forever bonded or, eternal mate. Cultural context indicates irreversible biological and emotional pairing ritual among Velin species. Warning, this bonding occurs only once per individual lifetime and affects neurochemical pathways, telepathic connections, and reproductive compatibility. Jay stared at Larina, the AI's words echoing in his mind like a death knell. Forever bonded? His voice was barely a whisper. What does that mean? Larina's luminous skin had taken on an even brighter glow, pulsing with what he now realized was intense emotion. Her violet eyes never left his face as she spoke, each word careful and deliberate. It means that when a Velin chooses their mate, it's not just an emotional decision. It's biological. Neurological. We bond on every level, mind, body, soul. Once the connection is made, we cannot love another. We become incomplete without our chosen one. The cramped tunnel suddenly felt impossibly small. Jace's heart hammered against his ribs as the implications crashed over him. You're saying you can never, that you'll never be able to love anyone else? No. Her hand still cupped his face, and he could feel the subtle tremor in her fingers. For my people, there is only one. Ever. And I've chosen you. But why me? The question burst out of him, raw and desperate. I'm just a communications tech. I'm not special, I'm not brilliant like you. I fix broken radios and calibrate frequency arrays. Why would you choose me? Larina's smile was soft, almost sad. Because you see me. What? Everyone else sees a Velin. They see my species, my intellect, my usefulness to the mission. But you. She leaned closer, her forehead almost touching his. You see me argue with the food replicator when it doesn't give me the right temperature. You see me get frustrated when my calculations don't work the first time. You see me laugh at terrible human jokes that I don't fully understand but find amusing because they make you happy. Jace felt something crack open in his chest. Larina. You brought me coffee yesterday, she continued, her voice growing stronger. Real coffee, not the synthetic stuff. You remembered that I said I missed the taste of something bitter. Such a small thing, but it meant you were listening. Really listening. The tunnel's emergency lighting flickered, casting dancing shadows across their faces. In the intermittent darkness, Larina's skin provided the only illumination, turning their small space into something magical and otherworldly. I've been watching you for weeks, she said, her thumb tracing the line of his jaw. Watching how you treat the junior technicians with patience, how you work extra shifts when someone is sick, how you always make sure everyone gets their fair share at mealtime. You have kindness in your bones, Jace. Genuine kindness. That's rarer than genius. But forever? His voice cracked. You're talking about forever. What if I'm not? What if I can't be what you need? You already are. She pressed closer, and he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. Do you think I would choose lightly? Do you think I would risk my entire future on someone I wasn't certain about? The testing, he said suddenly, understanding flooding through him. All those weeks of teasing, of pushing my buttons. I needed to know who you really were when you were frustrated, when you were tired, when you were stressed. I needed to see if your kindness was genuine or just a facade. Her eyes searched his face. It's genuine. It's beautiful. And I want to spend the rest of my life protecting it, nurturing it, loving it. The words hit him like a physical force. The intensity in her voice, the absolute certainty, the way her skin pulsed with emotion, it was overwhelming and terrifying and wonderful all at once. What happens now? He whispered. Now you choose, she said simply. The bond isn't complete until both parties accept it. I've made my choice, but you have to make yours. And Jace. Her voice grew serious. You need to understand what you're choosing. If you accept this bond, you'll feel what I feel. You'll know my thoughts, my dreams, my fears. And I'll know yours. We'll be connected in ways that humans don't typically experience. And if I say no? Pain flickered across her features. Then I'll respect your choice. But I'll never love again. I'll never bond with another. For Velithans, there is only one chance at this kind of connection. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders like a mountain. This incredible, brilliant, beautiful woman had chosen him, not just for now, but for always. And if he walked away, she would spend the rest of her life alone. I need time to think, he said, hating how small his voice sounded. Larina nodded, though he could see the hurt in her eyes. Of course. This is a lot to process. But Jace? She leaned forward and pressed a soft kiss to his forehead. Whatever you decide, know that these weeks with you have been the happiest of my life. Dr. Kane's office was a cluttered maze of xenobiological specimens and research notes, holographic displays showing anatomical diagrams of dozens of alien species. The elderly scientist looked up from her microscope as Jace entered, her weathered face creasing into a concerned frown. You look like hell, Marin, she said bluntly, gesturing to a chair. Let me guess, this is about your Velithan partner. Jace slumped into the offered seat, running his hands through his hair. Word travels fast. On a ship this size? The fact that you two were trapped together for 6 hours has everyone talking. Plus, Larina requested a meeting with me yesterday about human psychological compatibility. Dr. Kane set down her instruments and gave him her full attention. She's bonded with you, hasn't she? How did you? I've been studying xenobiology for 40 years, son. I've seen exactly 3 Velithan bondings in my career, and the signs are always the same. The increased luminescence, the constant proximity seeking, the way they look at their chosen mate like they're the only person in the universe. She paused. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Jace's throat felt dry. I need to understand what I'm getting into. She says it's biological, neurological. That we'd be connected on every level. Dr. Kane nodded gravely. She's not exaggerating. Velithan bonding is one of the most complex interspecies connections we've documented. When they choose a mate, their brain chemistry literally rewires itself. They develop a telepathic link, their hormonal systems synchronize, even their life expectancies become tied together. What do you mean, tied together? If one partner dies, the other typically follows within months. The bond is that deep, that fundamental to their existence. She leaned forward. Jace, you need to understand, this isn't like human dating, or even human marriage. This is 2 beings becoming, in essence, one entity with 2 bodies. The weight of Larina's choice hit him anew. She's risking everything. She's already risked everything. The moment she decided to bond with you, her biochemistry began changing. If you reject the bond now, she'll live, but she'll never be whole again. Velithans who lose their chosen mate before bonding is complete, they exist, but they don't really live. Jace buried his face in his hands. No pressure. I'm not trying to pressure you into anything, Dr. Kane said gently. But you deserve to know the full truth. And the truth is, this is bigger than just you and her. If you accept the bond, you're not just choosing a relationship, you're choosing to become part of something that transcends individual existence. And if I can't handle it? If I'm not strong enough? Then you'll learn to be. The bond doesn't just connect you, it strengthens you. Her intelligence, her intuition, her emotional resilience, they become partially yours. And your qualities become hers. Dr. Kane smiled softly. From what I've observed, she's chosen well. You have a strength of character that I think could handle this kind of connection. Before Jace could respond, the office door chimed. Dr. Kane called "Enter," and Larina stepped inside, her usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice smaller than usual. "I can come back later." "No, it's fine," Jace said quickly, standing. Dr. Kane was just explaining everything. Larina's eyes searched his face. "And how do you feel about everything?" The question hung in the air between them. Jace looked at this woman who had turned his world upside down in a matter of weeks, who had somehow seen past his ordinary exterior to find something worthy of forever. Her pale purple skin was dimmer than usual, her luminescence muted by anxiety. "Scared," he admitted. "Terrified, actually." Her face fell slightly, but she nodded. "I understand. But also." He stepped closer, drawn by some invisible force. "Also amazed. That someone like you would choose someone like me." "Jace," she whispered, her glow beginning to brighten. "I keep thinking about what you said. About how you see me. And I realize. I see you too. Not just the brilliant scientist, not just the beautiful alien. I see the woman who hums while she works, who gets excited about quantum mechanics the way other people get excited about sports, who somehow makes even the most mundane tasks feel like adventures." Larina's eyes filled with tears, an oddly human expression that made his heart ache. "I'm still scared," he continued. "But I'm more scared of a life without you than a life with you. If you'll have me, if you're sure about this impossible choice you've made." "I'm sure," she breathed. "Then yes," he said, the words feeling like jumping off a cliff. "Yes, I accept your bond." The change in Larina was immediate and dramatic. Her skin blazed with light, her entire being seeming to expand with joy. She launched herself into his arms, and he caught her, spinning her around in the small office as she laughed and cried simultaneously. "Dr. Kane," Larina said, not taking her eyes off Jace's face. "How long do we have before the bond becomes permanent?" "Usually about 72 hours from initial acceptance," the doctor replied, smiling at their obvious happiness. "You'll want to spend that time together, let the connection develop naturally." Larina's grin turned mischievous. "I know exactly how I want to spend those 72 hours. The heat in her voice made Jace's knees weak. "Larina. 3 days to show you exactly what you mean to me," she murmured, pressing closer. 3 days to love you properly before we become one forever." Looking into her radiant face, Jace felt the last of his fears dissolve. Whatever came next, whatever this bond would demand of him, he was ready. He was hers, and she was his, and for the first time in his life, forever didn't seem nearly long enough. The observation deck was deserted at this hour, the ship's artificial night cycle casting the vast chamber in soft blue light. Through the massive viewport, stars wheeled slowly past as the astral harmony continued its journey toward Kepler Station. But Jace had eyes only for the woman in his arms. Larina lay against him on the cushioned alcove they'd claimed as their own, her head on his chest, her pale purple skin radiating warmth and that mesmerizing inner light. 48 hours had passed since he'd accepted her bond, and the changes were already becoming apparent. He could feel her emotions as a constant, gentle presence in the back of his mind, her contentment, her love, her fierce protectiveness of what they were building together. "Can you hear my thoughts yet?" she asked softly, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on his chest through his shirt. "Not exactly," he replied, pressing a kiss to her curls. "But I can feel you." Your feelings. It's like having a part of you living inside me. It will get stronger, she murmured. In a few hours, when the bond completes, we'll be able to share thoughts directly. Are you ready for that? Jace considered the question seriously. The idea of someone else in his head should have been terrifying, but with Larina, it felt natural. Safe. I think so. Will you be able to see everything? All my memories, my embarrassing moments, my deepest fears. Larina lifted her head to look at him, her violet eyes luminous in the starlight. Not everything at once. The bond respects privacy, we'll share what we choose to share, though strong emotions will bleed through automatically. But Jace. She cupped his face with her hands. I've already seen your deepest self. That's why I chose you. And I've seen yours, he replied, marveling at how true that felt. Over the past 2 days, as they'd spent nearly every moment together, he'd discovered layers to Larina he'd never suspected. Her vulnerability beneath the confidence, her fierce loyalty to those she loved, her dreams of exploring the galaxy's mysteries with someone who truly understood her. Make love to me, she whispered suddenly, her voice carrying a note of urgent need. Before the bond completes. I want to give myself to you as I am now, completely separate, so that when we join forever, you'll remember what it was like when we were still two distinct people. The request sent fire through his veins. They'd been intimate before, sweet, passionate encounters that had left him dizzy with want, but this felt different. Final. Sacred. Here, he asked, glancing around the observation deck. Here, she confirmed, sitting up and beginning to unfasten her uniform. Under the stars. Where the universe can witness our choice. Jace helped her with the fastenings, his hands trembling slightly as he revealed the luminescent skin beneath. She was breathtaking, every curve and plane of her body seemed designed to fit perfectly against his. When she was fully revealed, she began working on his clothes with eager hands, her touch leaving trails of electricity across his skin. You're so beautiful, he breathed, running his hands down her sides, marveling at the way her luminescence responded to his touch, brightening and pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. You make me feel beautiful, she replied, pressing him back against the cushions. You make me feel seen, wanted, cherished. Their lovemaking was slow and reverent, each touch a promise, each kiss a vow. Jace had never experienced anything like the way Larina responded to him, her entire being seemed to sing with pleasure, her skin blazing brighter with each caress. When she guided him inside her, the sensation was overwhelming, not just physically but emotionally. Through their developing bond, he could feel her pleasure mixing with his own, creating a feedback loop of sensation that left them both gasping. I love you, she whispered against his ear as they moved together, her voice carrying the weight of eternity. I love you beyond reason, beyond biology, beyond everything I thought I knew about myself. I love you too, he replied, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Forever, Larina. Whatever that means, however long that is, I'm yours. As they reached the peak of their passion, something fundamental shifted in the space between them. The bond that had been building for days suddenly snapped into place with an almost audible click, and Jace gasped as Larina's consciousness flooded into his mind. My love, her mental voice was like music, warm and melodic and utterly right. My forever mate. My other half. Larina, he thought back, amazed at how natural it felt. I can feel everything. Your joy, your love, your, oh. Through the bond, he experienced her orgasm as if it were his own, while she felt his, the sensations building and amplifying until they were both crying out in perfect synchronization. When the waves of pleasure finally subsided, they lay entwined, both physically and mentally, two beings who had become something greater than the sum of their parts. The bond is complete, Larina whispered aloud, though she didn't need to. He could feel her thoughts as clearly as his own. How do you feel? She asked silently. Complete, he replied, and realized it was true. The vague sense of something missing that he'd carried his entire life was gone, filled by this incredible woman who had chosen him out of all the beings in the galaxy. Good, she purred, snuggling closer. Because this is just the beginning. We have forever to explore what we've become together. As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, the stars wheeling overhead like witnesses to their eternal bond, Jace felt a peace he'd never known was possible. What had begun as a game, a series of teasing encounters with a beautiful alien woman, had become the foundation of something transcendent. He was no longer just Jace Marin, communications technician. He was part of something larger, something beautiful, something eternal. He was bonded. He was loved. He was forever. And forever, he discovered, was exactly as long as he'd always hoped it would be.